A young mother of two small children killed in a highway crash. Her husband and two boys survived.
Georgia State Patrol filed it under an accident report. But the husband, who suffered a nasty head injury in the wreck, believed in his heart there was more to his wife's death, and he is determined to find out. It happened along I-95 northbound, not far from Riceboro, Liberty County, 4 months ago. WTOC's Don Lagana joins us now with his special report, The Truth at Mile Marker 72. Don, how did it all start?
They were on their way home from a camping trip in Florida with friends. The Jandros were about 45 minutes from their home in Pooler on a Sunday afternoon. Alice Jandro was driving. Her husband Alex just woke up from a nap. He remembers the car losing control and crashing into a tree. The boys were all right, but Alice died at the scene.
911, where's your emergency?
Someone just had a really bad wreck.
Okay, and which mile marker is it at?
72.
We hit a tree probably going about 60 miles an hour or so.
At that moment, life for the Jandro family would never be the same.
And she died instantly, so.
Chief Warrant Officer Alex Jandro's wife, Alice, was 30 years old. They had two young children, 9-year-old Julian and 2-year-old Kyle, both in the car when it crashed. Alex and the boys survived. They have pictures and videos.
So you're spying on me with the camera?
No.
And memories. But for Alex, one feeling haunts him.
Guilt, yeah. I've always protected her, and I feel like if I would have swerved off the road, there's no way I would have, wrecked into the woods.
It was February 20th, 2011. The Jandros were headed home to Pooler on I-95 North from Florida. About an hour and a half from home, a tired Alex let Alice take the wheel.
It was a Sunday, the roads were crowded, and I always do the driving on long trips, every time. For the first time ever, I was like, all right, you know what, you drive. We're almost home. She'd never go over the speed limit. She was like a grandmother. 2 hands on the steering wheel. I'd make fun of her all the time.
But something completely unexpected was about to take place, starting with a dark red Cadillac. Alex had just woken up from a short nap.
We were in the left lane. The car was in the middle lane. All of a sudden, no blink or anything. It just veered right into us.
The Jandros' white Toyota 4Runner went off the road.
She was fishtailing, trying to get it back on the road, maintain control, but it got to a point after a couple hundred yards where it was either flip the vehicle or go down into the woods and just go with the fishtail. And so she chose to go into the woods, I guess, and hit the brakes, didn't slow us down. Well, what I remember was the whole roof was encaved, crushed on me. My head was completely split open, and I had to somehow bend the roof off me to get out of the car. I just saw my wife, looking up, and the blank look up into the air. Her body was just completely horrific. And, I couldn't get into my head she was dead at that time, but I mean, deep down inside, I knew she was gone. Everybody was just sitting there shaking their head, and walking up. I lost sight in my left eye, and I was just completely out of it, walking around, screaming people to help me, get my wife out of the car. I couldn't get her out. I was trying to bend metal to get her out. I don't know why. I mean, now you look back, the worst thing you can do is get her out of the car, but I wasn't thinking straight. Well, I saw stuff that would be equivalent to a battlefield, but it wasn't just some stranger. It was my wife, who I love very much. So.
Julian and Kyle suffered bumps and bruises, but outside of emotional scars, physically, they were okay. Alex now faced life as a single dad. He's leaving the military and his Charlie company at Hunter Army Airfield.
I was the guy in the military, discipline and, role model. And she was the tender kindness, the mother, very nurturing. Being in the military and having a single father, 2 kids just doesn't work out. So my priorities have now changed, from the military and supporting a family to just taking care of 2 kids and making sure they have the best life.
Focused on the children, something in his heart, head, and gut still questioned the wreck.
I just thought, hey, some people veered into us, but they never stopped and gave a statement or did anything. I remembered them, and then all of a sudden I started second-guessing myself. Maybe I'm crazy. It was unbelievable that so many people stopped and nobody saw anything.
We're at mile marker 72 on I-95, and a car just went off the road and took a tree head-on.
Alex's attorney requested the 911 tapes, accident traffic reports, and more. Then they hired a private investigator.
Comes back, a few weeks later, he's like, nobody saw anything. They just saw a car on the side of the road. We don't just go off the road for no reason. I was just like, well, let me just get a look at some of this stuff.
His own personal investigation underway, Alex Jandro started to find out people did see what happened, and he was intent on finding them.
I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now if there wasn't more to this story, a lot more.
Alex Jandro took his information, contacted witnesses from reports. He developed a file. This is the file, documents, information, a timeline. He took it all to state police. Where was State Patrol? Was there ever an investigation? I contacted GSP, and WTOC interviewed one woman who saw the entire accident, even had pictures.
I wish it was being handled differently. I mean, if it was a fatality accident, so I kind of just assumed it would be investigated thoroughly, but unfortunately, at least from what we've seen, it hasn't been.
So what did happen? Was there illegal activity involved in the death of Alice Jandro? The rest of the story tonight on The News at 11.
Thank you, Don. We'll be right back.
A tragic wreck. A young soldier lost his wife, the mother of his children, in a crash on the interstate.
But was it really an accident, or did someone cause it? WTOC's Don Lagana joins us now with a special report, The Truth at Mile Marker 72.
Don, the husband hired a private investigator, questioned state police. Did he get the answers he was looking for?
Eventually, but he says Georgia State Patrol officers told him there were no witnesses. So did the private investigator, and there were also no follow-ups, according to him. Alex Jandro did not quit. He took 911 calls from the Sunday afternoon his family was run off the road. He gathered incident reports, traffic reports, and he found people who did see what happened.
We don't just go off the road for no reason.
A tragic car wreck on Interstate 95 northbound near Riceboro. A young mother dead. Her husband and two small children struck with grief and guilt.
My whole world got turned upside down again when I found that out.
What Alex Jandro found out was after a private investigator and police told him no one saw the accident, which killed his wife Alice. Not only did the 911 tape provide names and numbers,
Amber Mitchell, and it's 256.
Accident reports showed a couple, including a woman named Amanda Steele, saw at least 5 cars road racing on I-95 Sunday afternoon, February 20th, 2011, seconds before the Jandros crashed.
They both witnessed the whole event. And there's a lot more to the story than just a red car veering into me. And it shows that 40 minutes after the accident, there was a Amanda Steele with her phone number there, and the statement says that there was a white 4Runner racing another unknown vehicle, and it blew a tire and went into the woods. And that really rose a red flag for me. I was pretty upset when I saw that, because that wasn't true at all.
There was a vehicle in the middle lane, so the vehicle in the middle lane swerved to the far left lane to kind of avoid being hit. Well, there was a white SUV in the far left lane, and then that vehicle went into the ditch.
This is Amanda Steele, now married and named Amanda Cameron. She says officers confused her initial report. It wasn't the Jandros racing, she says, but 2 cars, a Honda and a Mustang, her husband had been admiring. He asked her to take a picture, this picture.
So I snapped the picture, and immediately thereafter, they took off racing.
Minutes later, Amanda says she was on the scene of a fatal crash. She wrapped a towel around the head of the then seriously injured Alex Jandro, who was screaming for anyone to help his children and his wife, who ended up dying at the scene.
My heart goes out to him and his family. I know they're going through a lot.
A fatal crash, Amanda says, was caused by road racing.
We saw that they were racing. It was obvious that they were racing.
And this was an illegal event that took place which caused the death of my wife. And nobody did anything about it or even knew about it. And it took me, 3 months later to look into it at a moment where most people probably just, whatever, it's over. It took me looking into it to figure this out.
Alex's investigation brought even more pain. Amanda's report said the Honda in this picture blew a tire.
The Honda Accord was sitting there all by its lonesome, about 300 yards away from the crash site. It would be too easy to find these guys.
Witnesses at the scene, reports made, phone numbers given, 1 car possibly involved, disabled nearby, potential suspects at the scene, and Alex says authorities, including Georgia State Patrol, did not follow these leads.
Keep the public safe, investigate, figure out what happened, figure out who's at fault. That's like their job in life. And for them not to investigate something like that, that's like me, going into combat in Afghanistan with a freaking, rubber knife or something. I mean, I'm pointless, I'm useless.
I kind of just assumed it would be investigated thoroughly, but unfortunately, at least from what we've seen, it hasn't been.
Alex gathered up all the information he had and took it straight to the commander of the Georgia State Patrol, and a meeting was set up with Lieutenant Chris Wright.
And he was very concerned. And that's when I learned that after he looked up the Georgia State Patrol Troop 1 call history report, that information was immediately, within seconds, relayed to them. And Lieutenant Wright admitted as a supervisor was really concerned why nobody followed up at all. He said you take a lead, you continue to follow a lead and to follow a lead and to follow a lead until there's no more leads. And it's like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Now, the Georgia State Patrol reconstruction team is on the case, and investigation underway.
That makes me pretty happy, yes. But he also said that because he's like, if it would have been within the first 48 hours, he probably had no problem catching these guys. So much time has passed, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Alex could not give up on his children or his wife, Alice. The truth at mile marker 72, close to being solved. Now he can only hope the racers involved are found.
They committed a crime and they ran. I mean, that in itself is, deserves justice. You can't weigh human life. I mean, just the loss of one life, it's not right. If there's another life that's lost, that's even worse.
Now, Georgia State Patrol would not comment on the active investigation, but I did speak with Georgia State Police Lieutenant Chris Wright. He said information about the Jandro case was not delivered to the proper channels. If there is a crime, they want to get to the bottom of it. But he says nothing was overlooked, and he also went on to say that the right officer did not get the proper information. He wouldn't blame local authorities, but he did say suspects will be prosecuted if the reconstruction team can piece together the evidence here. 4 months have passed for Alex Jandro. At least he has some closure to his entire search for truth at mile marker 72.
Yeah, he's certainly not giving up the fight, and if he hadn't persevered here, who knows, it would have all just disappeared.
If he had listened to the private investigator, if he had listened to the officers originally, he wouldn't have gotten this far.
Yeah. All right, let us know what happens next.
Everyone should follow his lead when
Absolutely.
it comes to anything going wrong.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Don. Well, there.
Alice Jandro was driving on I-95 with her husband and 2 small children.
Someone just had a really, really bad wreck.
Alice swerved off of the interstate.
We hit a tree probably going about 60 and she died instantly.
Why did Alice swerve off the interstate?
And these are cars that are like souped up for racing.
Why has no one been prosecuted?
They went up to an officer and they wanted to give a statement. The officer shoot them all the way.
WTOC's Don Lagana is looking for the truth at mile marker 72. Thursday night on The News at 6 on WTOC.
In a handful of seconds this past February, Alex Jandro went from being a husband, a father, a soldier, to a widower, a civilian, and a single dad. It happened at mile marker 72 on I-95. We talked with Don Lagana earlier today about the truth behind what happened in just that handful of seconds.
We have a family who's coming home from Florida on their vacation, headed back to Pooler. About the Midway area, mile marker 72, something happens, and they end up in a ditch, into a tree.
Someone just had a really, really bad wreck.
The mother is dead. She was driving the car. The father has a split open head. The kids are okay. After the accident, weeks go by. The father is wondering what really happened. He kind of followed his gut, followed his heart, and finds out that there's a lot more to the story that he had a feeling about. He hires a private investigator. He has his lawyer involved. But those people don't help. It's all on him. He ends up being the one who pieces it all together.
Tomorrow night at 6 and 11, Don will show us exactly what Alex Jandro was able to piece together in our special report, The Truth at mile marker 70. Well, the truth is...
I'm Don Lagana along I-95 headed northbound. 4 months ago, a tragic car accident took the life of a mother of 2 children. Her husband trying to find answers. What happened here at mile marker 72? At first, he thought it was just an accident, but after some further thought and some investigation of his own, he realized there was much more to how his wife was killed in that car crash. Coming up on Wednesday, we're going to take a closer look at what did happen. We'll have his story in a WTOC special report, The Truth at mile marker 72, coming up tonight. For WTOC.com, I'm Don Lagana.